Thank you for watching my channel. Please subscribe to it so that you don't miss any new videos. And now let's get started. My name is Daniel. I'm 32 years old and I've been married to Emily for about 5 years. We met in college, started dating almost immediately, and eventually decided to tie the knot a couple of years after graduation. We don't have kids yet, partly because neither of us was entirely ready and partly because we both tended to focus on living what we saw as our young adult life. We went out a lot, partied with friends, drank a bit too often, and traveled when we had the chance. I used to imagine that at some point we'd calm down, buy a bigger house, and talk more seriously about having kids. Over time, though, I noticed Emily's partying habits seemed to deepen rather than lessen. Often she'd get home late from nights out with friends, or she'd stay after a social event with coworkers for a few more drinks. It never felt like a real problem, but it did stand out. I sometimes teased her about being the last person to leave the bar. She used to say it was because she was just enjoying life while we still could. Things took a more serious turn one Friday when Emily mentioned a big after-work party was happening. Some corporate end-of-year party, she said. I was working late that evening, so it wasn't unusual that I wouldn't go. We'd done that before. She attended events with her colleagues, and I'd either meet up later or just let her have fun. She always promised she'd get a safe ride home. The night she didn't come home. That Friday, I returned to our apartment in Lincoln Park around 1 o'clock a.m. My office had kept me especially late, and I was exhausted. To my surprise, Emily wasn't there. Usually, if she went out, she'd text me something like, "I'll be a bit late" or "leaving soon." This time, there was no message. So I called. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear music blasting in the background. "Daniel, hey," Emily shouting over noise. Oh. I sighed, but told myself not to worry. Okay, an hour, I thought. I hung up and went to shower, hoping she'd be back soon, but 2 hours later, still no sign of Emily. I tried calling her again, and this time she said something new. Emily, sounding tipsy. "Oh, I'm heading to my colleague's house. A group of us are going. He has a big place, apparently." She rattled off an address, which I quickly wrote down. My chest tightened. "Daniel, wait, what do you mean you're all going? You've already had a ton of drinks, I'm sure. Let me come pick you up." Emily, laughing, No, it's fine. We're just going to hang out a bit longer. I'll text you." She hung up abruptly. Her speech was slurred, and she didn't sound like she wanted me around. However, I wasn't comfortable with the idea of her going to some random colleague's house while drunk, so I got into my car and put the address into my phone's GPS. The address was on the opposite side of the city, a neighborhood I wasn't too familiar with, but I was determined to get there. When I arrived, the house was lit on the ground floor, but it was mostly quiet. No signs of a continuing party. The windows revealed only a warm light inside, but no big group. I knocked on the front door, and a tall man answered. He looked at me curiously. "Daniel, hi. Sorry to bother you this late. My wife said she came here with some coworkers for an after-party. Brown hair, wearing a black dress, maybe with a group of people. Had you seen them?" Man, raising an eyebrow. "I think you have the wrong place, buddy. I'm here alone. I haven't had any visitors tonight." He gave me a small grin, almost a smirk, and I felt a surge of discomfort. "Man, you sure you have the right address? Maybe you'd like a drink or something, though, if you're that worried. Looks like you could use one." Daniel, fighting an urge to lash out. "No thanks, I must have the wrong address then. Sorry to bother you." He shut the door, and I stood on the porch for a moment, baffled. I tried to call Emily again, but she didn't pick up. I started scrolling through my phone, checking for any coworkers' numbers I might have. I found one, Josh, a friendly enough colleague of hers I'd met at a prior event. He picked up on the second ring. "Daniel, Josh, hey, it's Daniel. Sorry to call so late, but do you know where Emily is? She told me you guys were all going to a house to keep the party going. I can't find her." Josh, sounding half asleep. "Dude, we all went home a while ago. The party ended around midnight, maybe a bit after. I haven't seen her since. She said something about heading out, but that was hours ago. Are you sure you have the right information?" I hung up, feeling a knot in my stomach. The address Emily gave me was a dead end. Nobody was with her, and her colleagues had parted ways. Where was she actually going? I drove back home, the time now pushing past 4 o'clock a.m. I kept glancing at the empty passenger seat, imagining her voice telling me some silly excuse. My mind churned through all sorts of possibilities. Maybe her phone died or she left with someone else. It made no sense. When I reached our apartment, there was no sign of her. I laid on the couch, phone in hand, texting her. Daniel, text message. Where are you? Are you safe? Please call me. No response. I drifted off around 5 o'clock a.m., physically and mentally drained. The late return. At noon, I jolted awake to the sound of the front door opening. Emily stumbled in, still wearing the outfit from the night before, hair disheveled, carrying her heels in one hand. She smelled of alcohol and stale perfume. My heart lurched at the sight. I'd never seen her come home so late, so blatantly disoriented. Daniel, Emily, where the hell have you been? Emily, slurring slightly, calm down. I had a rough night, okay. We ended up staying longer than I thought. I guided her to the kitchen and poured her a glass of water. She dropped into a chair, rubbing her temples. Daniel, why didn't you answer your phone? Why give me that address, some random guy's house? And your colleagues said they all went home hours before you disappeared somewhere else. Just tell me what happened. Emily, I might have messed up the address, or maybe I typed it wrong. My phone was almost dead. I don't know. She lowered her gaze. Her entire body language screamed guilt. I kept pushing. Daniel, you typed it wrong. Then who was that man who answered? He wasn't hosting any party. You know him, right? Emily, eyes flickering with panic. Ah, that might have been my ex's old place. The address I gave you, I must have mixed them up. It's near the same street, I guess. I froze, my anger rising further. Daniel, your ex's place, so he's the one who offered me a drink at 4 o'clock a.m. That's how you treat me, sending me on a wild goose chase. Emily, Daniel, I was drunk, okay, I messed up. It's not what you think. I ended up at a friend's place, Tim's place. He's just a coworker. A bunch of us were there. That's when I remembered that phone call with Josh. He had said none of them ended up at a friend's place. They all parted ways. Now Emily was throwing new names at me. Lies stacked on more lies. I shook my head in exasperation. Daniel, fine. Then let's call Tim right now. I want him to confirm, because everything else you said is a contradiction. Emily paled. Emily, know you what? You might be asleep. I don't want to. But I'd already grabbed her phone off the table. Daniel, you have 1% battery left. Hurry up. Call him. She dialed Kim's number, put it on speaker. No answer. She tried once more. Nothing. Daniel, give me a coworker's number. Someone who can confirm your story. Give me something. Because all your colleagues I've tried have said they left alone. They didn't see you. She looked like she might cry again, but her tears no longer moved me. I was furious, feeling entirely betrayed. Instead of explaining more, she pushed past me and stumbled toward the bedroom. Emily, I'm done with this conversation. I'm exhausted. We'll talk later. She dropped onto the bed and within minutes was snoring softly. I just stared at her. Part of me wanted to throw something, break something, but the other part felt a hollow, gut-wrenching sorrow. I called Tim myself from her phone, no pickup. Then I called a few other coworkers I managed to find in her contacts. Two of them repeated the same story. Emily had left the party at midnight. They assumed she went home. That's it. No big group, no after party. My mind was spinning. She'd lied about every single detail. Leaving in anger? Anger doesn't begin to describe the way I felt. Absolute betrayal. Emily had effectively used me as a fool, sending me to a random address, her ex's place, apparently, and weaving a story about coworkers that turned out to be non-existent. My frustration boiled over. I marched into the kitchen, saw the empty bottles of wine and liquor we sometimes shared. I slammed them into the trash, toppling a few chairs in the process. I was venting like an animal trapped in a corner. The entire house felt tainted with her lies. An hour later, she was still sleeping. Without a word, I grabbed a suitcase and shoved my clothes, toiletries, laptop, whatever essentials I could think of, into it. My intention was to get out of there before she woke up again. If she wanted to act like a stranger, well, she'd get a stranger's reaction. I paused briefly at the bedroom door, half expecting to feel regret or to see her stir, but she remained dead asleep, so I left. Drove to a friend's place in the outskirts of Chicago. He gave me a spare couch to crash on. I told him only the basics. Daniel, she's been lying and might be cheating. I can't stay in that apartment. He nodded sympathetically, offered me a beer, and told me to take my time figuring out my next move. The fallout. For 6 months, I essentially cut off contact with Emily. She blew up my phone with text, calls, voicemails at first, all attempts at half-baked explanations. Daniel, please let me explain. Or, you have to believe me, it's not what it looks like. Or, I made a mistake, but I love you. I didn't buy it. If she truly loved me, she wouldn't have lied so blatantly, humiliating me in that manner. 6 months of near total silence. She tried contacting my parents, tried going through mutual friends, but I wasn't ready to talk. My anger shielded me from sorrow, turning me numb. I devoted time to therapy and to reflecting on how easily our trust was broken. Eventually, around the 7th or 8th month, she found a way to see me in person, showed up at my friend's place one afternoon. She looked tired, worn down. I almost pitied her, but my heart was still hardened. She started to speak. Emily, Daniel, I messed up. I'm sorry. I just got in over my head. I was drunk. Daniel, raising a hand. Stop. I don't need any more nonsense. You never told me the truth that day. I'm convinced I'll never get it now. She tried to approach me, tears welling up. Emily, but let me fix this. Let's talk. Daniel, you had your chance that night and the next day. You could have told me something real. Instead, you lied. Every time. She finally admitted something about seeing an old friend that night, a man she used to date, but insisted nothing sexual happened. I just shook my head, recalling the contradictory statements about Tim, our colleagues, about her ex. She'd never keep the story consistent. Aftermath. In the end, we parted ways for good. It took another half a year for us to finalize the divorce. Over that time, she made random pleas, claiming she was sorry, that she'd stopped drinking, that it was all just a big misunderstanding. I was done. I told her, Daniel, I can't unsee how you destroyed my trust with all those lies. I'm not your fool. When we finally divorced, we had no major assets to fight over. No house, no kids, so it was mercifully quick. She moved out officially, returning the keys. Then, ironically, I heard from a mutual friend that she started dating some new guy not long after. I shrugged when I heard the news. For the first time in a year, I felt no wave of anger or hurt, just emptiness or maybe relief. At times, I reflect on that final fiasco and wonder what exactly happened. Did she cheat that night? Or was she having an affair even earlier? I never got a concrete answer. But seeing how thoroughly she lied, how many layers of deception she put up, I can't help but assume the worst. She was capable of stepping out on me, then lying to my face about it over and over. That was enough reason for me to walk away. Epilogue. I moved to a new apartment in Chicago, focusing on my job and on building a healthier routine. The heartbreak gradually dulled, replaced by a cautious sense of freedom. I'd occasionally see old mutual acquaintances who ask how I'm doing. If I've spoken to Emily, my standard answer, we don't speak because there's nothing left to say. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully trust a partner again, but I do know that I'm better off alone than stuck in a web of lies. The memory of that confusing, humiliating night standing on the porch of her ex's house, hearing him laugh, discovering the truth from coworkers, motivates me to remain vigilant with future relationships. I won't let someone manipulate me like that again. And so here I am, forging a new path. Maybe I'll meet someone else who's honest and stable. Maybe I'll remain single for a while. Regardless, I now value truth above all else. If Emily taught me anything, it's that a single night of lies can unravel years of love. And once that trust breaks, no half-hearted apology can mend it.